Man, y'all know the face, y'all know the name. Y'all tuned into the world's greatest podcast. No, I don't just say this because it sounds cool. No, I don't just say this because it looks lit on a t-shirt. You are tuned into Talk Ain't Cheap podcast, hosted by Mr. Yours truly. It's a movie, Cletus Real Talk. I got a special guest with me, and I'm located at this special guest restaurant. I don't really introduce my guests. I think that's kind of corny. I think it takes away from their demeanor and their swag. So I'm gonna let my guest introduce himself.
Hey, yo, what's going on, everybody? My name is Javonte. I'm a vegan restaurant owner here at on Staten Island in New York City. So, I don't know, born and raised in Michigan, Detroit specifically. Bounced around with the college a little bit. Got my master's degree and moved out to New York literally right after I walked across the stage, so like the next day. So, been out here ever since. Been about 2 or 3 years. Almost a little over 2 years, and decided to open up a place, and now it's about 6-7 months old now. So
fire. Yeah. And you're black. Let's not forget that. I know your name Javonte. They might have got it from there,
yeah.
But no, you're also black and one of the few black restaurant owners on Staten Island.
Definitely.
So off the walk-in, we got to give you your flowers, bro. Like that's big. That's major.
Appreciate it.
So let's take a step back a little bit, right? So you're from Detroit.
Yes, sir.
What made you come to Staten Island?
Well, I'll be honest, as a kid for a while, maybe around 15, 16, I wanted to live in New York City. You know, I didn't really know why. You know, I think it was just the idea of the picture that's painted from, you know, in every place outside of New York City. You know, we all have this idea of what New York City is like, you know, if you've never been, you know. So it's just this big glamorous place, and it's just kind of like, yo, that is attractive. I wonder what kind of opportunities lie there. So, you know, since I was about 15, 16, I had this idea of like, all right, I want to move to New York City. I want, you know, if I'm going to find myself, if I'm going to discover myself, I want to do it in the biggest city in the nation, you know. So I, you know, plotted and found a way to kind of make that happen as soon as I finished up with school. And I was out in Manhattan for I think about 4 or 5 months, because I was another little bit of background. I was working in higher education for a while, so I was working in residence life for about 3 or 4 years professionally. So I moved out to Staten Island to take a job with Wagner College, and I've been out here ever since. So.
That's dope. So I'm assuming did you get your master's in resident life in higher education?
So my master's is actually in it's a program called Human Development and Leadership with an emphasis in industrial supervision. So it's kind of like a cross between an MBA and psychology. You know,
that's fire.
You really learn a lot about what it means to not necessarily run a business, but also what it takes to I guess empower, you know, staff, because a lot of businesses, you know, they're only really as good as the people that you have in place making the motor go, you know. So if you are able to, as an employer, get the best out of your employees, you put your business in the best position for success. You know, so that's really the point of the program, you know, because you can learn, again, I mean, you can know, you have the greatest idea in the world, you know, you can know how to run a business, but if you don't know how to treat people, if you don't know how to get the best out of people, then your business is going to struggle. You know, unless you run, you know, a sole proprietorship or whatever you do, you know, it solely relies on you. You know, then I mean, maybe that looks a little different. But for me, you know, I have a restaurant, so it's not sustainable for me to do everything by myself, you know, at least for a very extended period of time. So I need to have, and I have to be able to rely on people to be able to kind of have my back and to be able to kind of have that same pride and have that same sense of ownership over the place as I do when I'm not here. So I feel like the program really served its purpose.
That's awesome. So what are some of the things that you've implemented with your own staff that kind of helps the motor go?
I think one of the best things that I could do and have done is just try to listen. You know, just try to listen to myself, try to figure out what it is that they want. I really want to try to break the break the barriers of what it means to have employees. You know, what is an employer-employee relationship looks like. I really want to break down what has been just kind of like traditional concepts, right? So whenever I'm having a conversation, you know, with my employees, especially if it's in an interview, I always kind of start by asking them what it is that they're looking for. You know, because if I understand what it is that they're looking for, then ultimately what I'm going to be able to do is kind of help them fulfill their purpose in life. And everybody's at a different stage, which is why I think it's important to listen. So yeah, I think that's really what it is. I know I have like one employee. She wants to be a personal chef. You know, so she wants to be able to get that restaurant experience. She wants to be able to learn what it takes to minimize variation in dishes. What is how important customer service is. You know, as it relates to kind of getting people to come back. You know, because being a personal chef, you know, it's going to be tough. You really gotta have somebody that likes you enough to want your cooking all the time. You know, so she's just trying to get experience in that way. I have another employee she's actually just looking to open up another business. I mean, not another business, just a business of her own. So she feels like working under me will really kind of help her get that experience because she wants to be able to kind of see the ins and outs of what I'm doing here. So it just really depends, you know. Someday I might have somebody come in who really just wants to make good money. You know, maybe they just want to be able to supply, to bring home cash for their family so that way they can make a living. And what makes them happy is being able to provide for their family. You just never really know. So, yeah, really, I think it's just all about just trying to listen and just trying to find what it takes to meet your employees halfway, because I've seen and worked at businesses that have felt like, all right, well, this is our show, you work for us, you know, and I dread it. I dread it, places like that, because I'm not a robot, you know. I'm a human being. I have feelings, I have goals, I have aspirations, you know. So to sit up here and tell me that you just want me to come in and do a job, or you want me to just come in and do what you want me to do, and not really allow me to be able to better myself in the process.
The money will never be worth it.
Never. It'll never be worth it.
So what are some red flags that you have when you deal with certain customers or employees per se? I'm sorry. Like, what are some of the red flags that you've seen in interviews that you're like, oh yeah, no, that's not what we're doing?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be honest. It could just be me. I haven't really had a lot of bad experiences as it relates to interviewing for a job at my place. I mean, I've been on recruiting teams for years, but as it relates to just trying to get employees here, because I haven't conducted a crap ton of interviews, because again, the business is still young. We have to make sure we have the capital before we bring in quite a few people. I haven't seen anything too crazy. I think there have been some things that I've seen in some people. Maybe it relates to kind of being able to come in whenever they want, or coming in and being able to kind of do whatever they want, that kind of thing. Because at the end of the day, while I definitely want my employees to be comfortable, perception does matter, and we have customers come in and out. So at the you can't. There has to be some degree of professionalism. While I want you to be yourself, there has to be some degree of professionalism. So it can't be if you're looking for a job, and I think I had maybe one person who I interviewed that was kind of like that. If you're looking for a job where you're gonna you want to feel like you at the crib, maybe this ain't the place for you, because I want customers and employees that I have. We want customers that once they come through those doors, we want to make sure that we do whatever we can to make sure they come back. Especially as a vegan restaurant, because Staten Island doesn't really we don't have the amount of vegans that a place like Manhattan and Brooklyn does. So really it's a little tougher, because right now what we're trying to do, we're trying to cater to the vegans that we do have, but at the same time we're trying to get some people converted, or at the very least get some people thinking that maybe I can eat a vegan meal 2 or 3 times a week, because that's going to be important for us to have a long life here. So that's the mindset that my employees have. That's the mindset that I have. You know, what can I do to keep people coming through those doors, regardless of what their diet is?
So what is veganism? Because I'm African, right? So we have a very, 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 and this is gonna sound very different depending on who's listening. Meat-based diet. We also have a lot of veggies. I'm not saying it's not like a good balance, but like at the basis of a lot of our rices, there's meat stock. Even if we're not eating meat, but there's meat stock and there's meat products and products that come from beef or chicken or goat or whatever. So what is veganism?
Right. So I'll be honest. I think a million vegans could give you a million different definitions of what veganism is. At the core, I think every vegan though would say that it's the practice of abstaining from any animal products or anything that's derived from animal products. I think that and whether that's food or whether that's clothing, whatever. That's really this idea, because at the end of the day, as much as despite all of the things we've seen growing up, all the got milk commercials, all of that stuff, we don't need meat. I don't think there's anybody in the world who would argue that, who would say we need meat. I've never heard that. We don't need meat.
What about the people who will say that, protein?
It's one of the most ridiculous arguments I've ever heard. To be honest, it is. And for any vegan, it's probably the most ridiculous argument. But it is probably the most common argument, which is interesting because I've never been to the doctor and they've been like, you protein deficient, you need to eat some meat. Never heard anybody who's had an experience like that. So it's never really been an issue, but it has been something that we've just been conditioned to believe, that we need more protein than we think we do. If you talk to any nutritionist will tell you that the most important macronutrient is carbohydrates.
So carbs.
But we're quicker as a society to cut carbs in our diet, even though it's proven it is the most important macronutrient. We're quicker to cut carbs as a way to be healthier. Which is mind-blowing, rather than trying to cut protein or cut meat. Probably obviously protein is still important, but you don't need nearly as much as you think you do. And I think that's what a lot of people, that's just kind of a perception that a lot of people have. But the moment you cut carbs, I know there's a lot of people who do like the keto diet and things like that. When you cut carbs, you're usually going to see a decrease in energy. Because that's literally what carbs is. Carbs converts into glucose in your body. Your body uses that glucose for energy. So once you cut those carbs, you're gonna see a decrease in energy. And yeah, at the end of the day, like you might see some weight loss, or you might feel like you're a little healthier because you were able to shed a few pounds. But at the end of the day, it's not gonna be sustainable, because what's gonna happen is as soon as you put those carbs back in your body, after you have deprived yourself from them, your body's gonna hold on to them. Your body's gonna treat them like a bank. You're gonna all right, we're taking this and some, and we're gonna hold on to it, and now you're gonna put on the weight that you lost and then some. So definitely the whole protein thing. I would definitely like that. There's protein in plenty of vegetables, especially if you eat anything with wheat. Broccoli, spinach has vegetables, but if you eat pasta, that has protein. A bunch of different things. Almost everything has protein in it, at least some level of protein, whether it's a lot or a little. There's at least some level of protein if you're eating. So
that you don't really have to get from meat.
Exactly. You can if you eat what is the general recommendation, which I think is about 2,000 calories a day, 9 times out of 10. Especially if it's a pretty balanced meal, you're gonna get the protein that you need. So,
what made you become a vegan? Or are you a vegan?
110%.
Okay. So, what made you want to become a vegan?
It really came down to health for me. I had friends, who I had a few vegetarian friends I always used to make fun of. Then I had a couple friends who actually went vegan, and I'm like, man, you crazy? Ain't nobody doing that crap. Like you out your mind, But at the heart of it all, I was always consider myself a student. It doesn't matter how much I know, it doesn't matter how much I accomplish. I'm always willing to listen to people, So while I was, and to some degree, I was a little close-minded because I'm like, I'm not doing that crap. I wasn't that close-minded because I was still like, so you got this effect from this. So essentially what I ended up doing is I started doing research on my own. I started saying like, all right, like, I know, a couple people who are doing it, so let me at least do my part and educate myself on what this is, And really the more education, that I did, the more I kind of informed myself. And the more I realized, I was like, wow, I really have felt, almost as if I've just been conditioned, So I'm like, all right, at the very least, let me try it. Again, I try to consider myself a more open-minded person. So, all right, I listened to it. I did a little research. All right, so let me try it. Let me see what happens. Because for a while, another bit of a backstory. Like, I grew up like fairly like chunky guy. Like, before I went vegan, I think I was at my largest weight that I probably ever been in my life, and I'm only standing at about 5'7", 5'8", so not super tall, but I was almost 240. So. I'm like, at the very least, because the other thing was I was always active, always. Like I grew up playing sports, but at the end of the day, I can never figure out why I could, even if I did lose some weight, why I couldn't keep it off. And I was like, I'm going to give it a shot. I think at the very least, if it doesn't work after, a week, then I go back to what it was. And I literally, I think I tried it for like 2 or 3 days, felt an instant difference, lost like 2 or 3 pounds. And I think I maybe was like, all right. I think I went to maybe like I don't know, a restaurant or something. Got a chicken sandwich from somewhere, and literally tried to eat it. And I was like, I don't want this. I don't want it. And that's how I knew. I'm like, this lifestyle is actually something that I am more attracted to. To when like for me to now have educated myself and then try to take a bite of a chicken sandwich and say like, this ain't it. And to think that like, and again. Like a pound a day is a lot, but I was, when I first went vegan, combined with the exercise that I was already doing, 5, 6 to 7 pounds a week was normal. It was almost crazy scary to think about how quickly I was losing weight, and I just never realized how much I was holding back from myself. Like I'm talking about like sinus issues that I had, joint pain that I had, like all these issues that I had before going vegan. I made that shift in my diet and all of that stuff went away. It was like magic. It was crazy. And the energy was another crazy thing. Like it was just like we hear and talk about how long meat. I hear a lot of people who eat meat now, they'll talk about like, I try to avoid red meat because it takes longer to digest and stuff like that. Yeah, at the end of the day, meat. Yeah, it is a lot tougher on our bodies to digest. So your body has to exert that energy. Your body has to exert that energy. But if you don't have the meat in your system, you're think about how much more energy you're gonna have, right? Because your body doesn't have to use that energy elsewhere. So now you're gonna have the energy and the clarity that you need and that you're looking for to do all the other things in life. So many people who are living sedentary lifestyles, and they think that it's normal to feel as sluggish or as depressed as they do, and a lot of it relates to their diet. Because they're not really getting any energy that they're supposed to be getting from their food. Because they think the biggest portion of their plate needs to come from an animal, and it's not really the case.
So what's the difference between because you mentioned like you have friends who are vegetarians. What's the difference between a vegetarian and a vegan?
So I think vegetarians, for the most part, just don't like to eat like meat. Right, but vegetarians they'll still keep an open mind to things like eggs or dairy or maybe like butter, like things that aren't necessarily like the animal, right? But maybe come from the animal, right? Because obviously we have all these different things that are derivatives of animals. So like you talk about like I know you mentioned earlier as in like some of like the African food and stuff like that. Maybe you're using a beef stock, you're using a chicken stock. So you're using these things that again come from animals but aren't necessarily the animal itself. And I think that's where a lot of vegetarians are kind of like, I'm okay with that. I just don't want to necessarily eat the meat. Um, but yeah, I think it's interesting. I think a lot of vegans, they don't. They'll probably. I'm not gonna speak for everybody, but I think I would. I would say that there are some vegans who would rather eat the meat than some of the dairy and some of the other things, because of everything that's associated with the dairy and some of the other things. So I think think about it like this, like Staten Island, for example, right? How many Italian spots do we have?
A lot.
A lot, right?
A lot.
A lot of these places are serving a lot of different pizza. Staten Island, they talk all the time about how known they are for the pizza here. So pizza, the ingredients for that have to be mass produced. Like there's no pizzeria, at least that I know of, that has a cow. So they're not making their own cheese. So their cheese is bought from somewhere. So this cheese has to be mass produced. Now, how do you mass produce? You at the end of the day, you're going to try to find ways to speed up the process of your production. Because if you're a supplier of cheese, at the end of the day, you want to try to make as much money as possible, and you want to try to get out as much product as possible. Usually you do that by adding ingredients that aren't even necessary to the actual product, because it helps stretch the product, right? So you end up having all these other things, like you ended up eating way more than you think you are, when you associate, yourself just, with the animal derivatives, because at the end of the day, they want to make that stuff stretch as much as they can. I mean, they even do it with the meat. I think McDonald's, like their McChicken. If I'm mistaken, I could be wrong. I think it's the McChicken. I haven't been to McDonald's in years, but I think it's more soy than it is chicken, because soy is cheaper than chicken. So we always, especially as large businesses are concerned, you're always going to try to find ways to cut costs and mass produce. The more you can have at a cheaper price, the more money you're able to make. So, yeah, did I answer your question?
No, you did. No, but I'm glad that you're talking about it, because I don't think that nowadays we eat to live. Mm-hmm. Like, I think a lot of people just be eating just because, like, it's just a habit.
Yeah.
Like, or boredom eat. You know what I'm saying? Like, they just feel like they have to eat something.
Right. Yeah, and that's true too. I think, yeah, to some degree. I think there's a couple factors as it relates to how we eat and why we eat. Like, no, we're not necessarily eating to live. And to get to a place where you are eating to live, it's going to take some mental toughness. And it's going to take conscious effort. But I think a lot of us associate this idea of eating with fellowship. It's kind of what we were taught growing up, especially if you go to church. So I think a lot of us associate this idea, like I think with the 4th just passed, right? The 4th of July. So, like growing up, if you celebrated the 4th of July, you associate this idea of eating with family time and with hanging out with the cousins and playing outside, and like you do all these different things. So, when it comes to food, you always, not you always, but a lot of times people want to eat because of what it either reminds them of, or because it actually gives them what it is that they're used to. Because we're a lot more predictable than we think. We tend to attach ourselves to, regardless of how bad it is for us, to the things that we grew up, to the things that we associate with great memories, rather. Right? So a lot of people will, to this day, even though there's like so much evidence now that shows the negative impact of meat, a lot of people to this day will defend meat because of what it meant to them growing up, because they saw, maybe their uncle on a grill, flipping the burgers, or they was able to see, their grandma putting the ribs in the oven, or the chicken, or whatever the case may be. So you associate all of those things with all of these great memories growing up. So now you like it's a part of you, right? And to detach from that means you're detaching from your memories. At least that's what some people think. You're detaching from these things that meant a lot to you. When that's not necessarily the case. But I think, yeah, for a lot of people, yeah, like we We eat because of the joy that it brings for us to feel connected to other people. You know, how people go out to eat all the time. You know, all the people are way more willing to spend money out to eat, and especially in New York, where it's ridiculously expensive to eat. You know, and they're willing to spend way more money out at restaurants and things like that because of the fellowship that comes along with it than they are to just kind of sit back in a small apartment in New York and make your own meal. You know, so I mean, at least that's kind of my take.
I agree. I think when it comes to food, I do believe that there is some kind of traumas attached to it that we call tradition. For example, I speak about like soul food. A lot of the soul food that we eat are like the scraps that come from a long legacy of things that we should not be eating, like chitlins and ham hocks and stuff like that. But we have turned those traumatic experiences into a way of having these high tasting, high sodium filled foods that we enjoy because one, it tastes good, but also because it's a part of tradition. And there is a level of trauma that I think that we all kind of enjoy. And that's when we have to figure out how to unravel that trauma and unlearn that behavior and really start thinking with our new minds about what we need to do or what we need to do to be able to help us move forward. So trust and believe, I agree with you completely. So how do you make vegan mac and cheese then if you don't use pasteurized cheeses and you ain't got no cows in the back?
Right. Nah. I think it's really just kind of all about finding things that are going to get you closer to that taste. Cashews are a really big one. I know a lot of people are allergic to cashews, but if you're not, cashews can really, really help with the flavor of cheese. Obviously, like, you know, now we're talking about raw cashews, not anything that's been like roasted, because some people bring in like cashew. I done had a cashew. It don't taste nothing like cheese. No, it has to be obviously prepared the right way. Actually, you want it to be rinsed because you don't want the nutty flavor. And then obviously you combine it with a few other ingredients. You know, so I think for me, one of the key ingredients in the cheese that I make is salt, because you don't really think or associate like sea salt, when you think about cheese, but cheese itself is naturally salty, you know. So if you're able to get that perfect amount of salt, then you can really have it resemble what cheese is. So using things like raw cashews, raw uncooked cashews, nutritional yeast, garlic, cayenne, like little things like that to really just kind of add that flavor. You won't really know much of a difference.
That's awesome. Well, so what is your favorite thing on the menu?
Oh, that's tough, man. That's really tough. I'm around it all the time, so I don't know. I'm really, really into these pancakes that I make. I'm actually just now adding them to the menu because we're going to be expanding the breakfast pretty soon. So, but they're extremely it's like almost like a dairy pancake or a non-vegan pancake, except it's probably the healthiest pancake I've ever heard of, because I'm using whole wheat flour, I'm using hemp milk, you know, all these like ingredients that are kind of like, not only are you able to enjoy a pancake, but you're able to really reap the benefits of some of these healthier alternatives. So that's probably my favorite. I don't know. I also really like pancakes. So
that's fire, and that's really dope. So where is your restaurant located for the folks that may not know?
Yes, I'm over here on 1938 Clove Road, down the street from there's a firehouse up the street on Targy and Clove Road, and then kind of in between that firehouse and where Intox Fitness is. Intox Fitness right on like Moselle and Clove. So I'm right in the middle of there.
How has business been going? And being that you are a black owner, I really want to ask those questions. Like, what are some of the challenges that you faced, being located where you are, as well as just being a black owner?
Yeah, I think the location definitely is a little tough. I don't think that again, I mean, I'm on Staten Island, but I don't even think I'm in a part of Staten Island that's necessarily really open, to this idea of veganism. But I think for me, the great thing is, even though because I had an idea that would happen going in, have a parking lot. So people are willing to travel. Driving in Staten Island is a lot easier than it is driving in Brooklyn or Manhattan. So I do have that advantage. People are going to be willing to travel to come to my place, especially because I'm one of 2 vegan restaurants on the island. So, it's definitely a little challenging when you don't have the direct support of, the community in which you're located, but again, because I have people who are willing to travel, I think that definitely really helps out a lot. And hopefully the people who are, who are within walking distance of my place, hopefully, they come around to it. I have a few people come in and out the door, that live over here, but not as much as I'm hoping for, or that I hoped for kind of coming into it. So it's just gonna continue to give it some time. Again, this idea of being vegan is still new to a lot of people. It's been this growing thing over the past maybe 5, 6, 7 years, but it's still very new to a lot of people. So I think the other really good thing is that I'm not too far from the colleges on Staten Island. So St. John's, Wagner, and CSI. They're maybe 10 minutes or less from where I am. So a lot of young people they're more willing to alter their diets, than people who have been eating the same way for 40, 50, 60 years. So, but unfortunately with COVID, we don't have anyone on campus. So that's a challenge, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I can't really get the young crowd that I'm looking for because none of them are here. So,
well, they're here. It's just we have to get them to know that you are here and know that you're doing what you're doing, because that's why I really wanted to make sure we got this podcast done, because I really believe in what you're doing. I think that outside of the fact that you have a vegan restaurant, you also have a lounge, a space where people can come and collaborate and build, and I think that also plays a huge role in this sense of community that you're building definitely out of your space.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, I think that's really what this all came from in the first place. I wanted anybody who knows anything about me, especially if you went to college with me, how big I was on community, on family, on trying to get people together. Like, I loved the idea of being able to just kind of have a good time with friends, creating memories. That's what it really was all about for me. So I wanted to open up a place that would be able to have people create memories. I wanted to, it all started with the stage. It all started with the microphone. I didn't have a blueprint of a restaurant. I had no idea that I was going to open up a vegan restaurant. I just knew that I was going to open a business, because that part of my mind, I was determined, that much, what happened after, just me being willing to expand and compromise on some of the things that I wanted. That all kind of followed, but I knew that I wanted to have a place that was going to be able to provide the thing that I felt like a lot of what Staten Island was missing, which is this idea of like a place for the community. So I wanted people to be able to come in and practice, their whatever it is that their passion is, to practice the arts, to be able to partake in the arts. So whether it's music, whether it's comedy, whether it's poetry, it doesn't really matter. To be able to kind of have that place to be able to kind of groom your talent, and or to maybe even have a place to figure out whether or not your talent is actually a talent. Because it's one thing to be in a studio recording, right? And you put in all this time recording and you're writing, and it's another thing to perform. It's another thing to win over a crowd. Maybe you realize as a music artist, you don't even like performing. But you like making music. That's okay, but you won't know unless you have that opportunity. That's the kind of place that I want to provide. I want people to be able to come in and find what it takes to groom themselves for the next step or whatever their passion is. So that's what it all started with. The vegan thing just kind of followed because, I'm vegan, so I wanted to take that risk and be able to kind of help educate people and show them that being vegan doesn't necessarily mean you have to compromise good food. But at the end of the day, I also needed a way to make sure bills was going to be paid. So I needed to be able to have some food. I needed to be able to have things that would bring in the money, because events don't always do that. They can, but when we're talking about when I talk about this idea of being able to bring in people who aren't necessarily very experienced, there won't be a lot of money floating around that, at least not typically. So though I want to be able to provide that for those people free of charge, and obviously that free that free ain't gonna last if you got to be able to kind of pay. If you got to pay, $4,000 a month in rent, on top of utilities and all this other stuff. So
and then getting food and
mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's tough. That's very tough. Wow, that's tough. Okay. So, what is the goal? What's the next couple of things that you hope to be able to implement post COVID? And how have you been holding up with COVID? I guess that's a better place to start, because that's you have to be super innovative. And being that I am also like a co-owner of a black-owned deli and I have my own black businesses, I understand, because you have to really kind of move with the pulse of the way the world is moving right now.
Definitely.
And it don't even matter how great your stuff is. It's how people are moving, depending on how COVID is affecting their lives, that they're going to react. So how has it affected the business, and how have you been able to still stay afloat?
I think, and this is the way I try to see a lot of life, is that there's good and bad, right? Obviously, COVID is, it's tough on a lot of different people, a lot of families. A lot of people have been affected, a lot of jobs lost. Like COVID has been, it has created a lot of disaster and has, made a lot of people change their lifestyle. So, that is all unfortunate. Definitely saw a decrease in sales. I think like horribly. I mean, I think we were getting, I think in April we were getting maybe 30% of what we were seeing in March. So there was definitely a big big decrease in sales. But I've always had the mindset of trying to find the good and the bad, because it exists. And for me, with it being slow, it gave me an opportunity to figure out how I can continue to grow the business, or what I can continue to add to the business. So that way, post-COVID, we're better off than we were before. Post-COVID, we're in a position to make more money than we would have if COVID hadn't happened. So that's really kind of put things in slow motion, which I think was a really good thing for the business, because of how young it was, and because I was a first-time business owner. So I had the opportunity to really sit back and say, like, hey, all right, the first 4 months, this was really effective. How can I add on to this? Or this wasn't so effective. How can I take this, away, and what can I replace with it? That's going to bring in more money. Because the more money I have, the more people I can hire. Right? Employees outside of rent is the most expensive things is the most expensive thing to a business. So I think to some degree, I know I can see both sides of why when things. When a business starts to suffer, why they turn to the employees and say, hey, I'm sorry, I have to cut you, or I have to get rid. Like, I can kind of see both sides. There's a whole nother side of it, because as a business, you can also become more efficient in other areas to save money, but that's neither here nor there. So really trying to find ways to be more creative and make more cash is really what I used during the slow periods of COVID. So that way, again, once COVID is over, I have more people here, which would ultimately lead to better service, lead to better products, because I think one thing that you're always constantly battling in a restaurant is time and quality, right? How can I get the best quality of this order, the best quality of this food out in a very timely fashion, And sometimes you want to get it out pretty quick, but then it compromises the quality. And obviously a customer isn't going to be happy about that. But maybe you have the perfect quality, but a customer had to wait 35 minutes for the food. Customer isn't going to be happy about that. So the more people I have here, the more I'll be able to kind of balance that time and quality. The more I'll be able to kind of have better customer service. And then the more heads I have in here for ideas, the more heads I have in here to help with like events and things like that. So it really, it's really just giving me the opportunity to add to the business, create an atmosphere, create a place that people want to be, to hopefully, bring in more money, get people to spend more money, and ultimately help the business grow and help me get more people working behind that counter.
That's awesome, brother. All right, well, if anybody wanted to follow you on Instagram, find you, connect with you, follow the restaurant, where can they go to do so?
Definitely. So I'm on Instagram at Javonte J Thompson. It's Javonte J Thompson. And the business is Tri Lounge and Cafe. That's TRI Lounge and Cafe. And yeah, definitely, don't be afraid to kind of hit me up. Don't be afraid to stop by. Don't be afraid to message me, like any of that, because I'm in the business of development. That's what I care more about than anything. And if I can help somebody else, or if I can just kind of serve as not even necessarily a mentor, just somebody who can give a little guidance and answer a few questions, because maybe you have a dream or vision, maybe you want to do something on stage here, maybe you want to open up a business here on something like elsewhere. If I can help anybody, like by all means, feel free to reach out to me. If you want to collab on something, by all means, feel free to reach out to me. Very, very open to all of that stuff. So my goal is to help, or not even necessarily help, but to take people to the top with me. I'm not trying to get there by myself. So definitely, if anybody ever want to, Javonte J Thompson, and Tri Lounge and Cafe.
Man, this guy's the GOAT, man. I'm gonna keep giving you your flowers, even though we just met. I believe in what you got going. I think it has super potential. I don't see a ceiling happening for you outside of Staten Island just being what Staten Island is. And that ain't have nothing to do with you. that was here before you, is going to be here after you. But thank you guys so much for tuning in to Talk Ain't Cheap podcast. Follow the brands, Talk Ain't Cheap Network on Instagram, the Cletus Group, the vibes. Like I said, you tune in to Talk Ain't Cheap and it's not that deep. It's a vibe.